Is someone going to steward this conversation?
Let's do it
Or is this
organically.
free for all? All right, free for all.
So glad to have you, Arabella and Bruce.
Excellent to be here.
Yeah, like we've had, we had our dialogue or podcast with you, Arabella, and we've had many with Bruce. And I know you and Bruce have had one, but we have never been all together to go deep into a topic. So I've been excited for this.
Yes, I remember meeting Bruce, or Bruce, I think you encountered me maybe the first time when, do you remember I did a presentation on aesthetics? Do you remember that?
I loved it so much.
Yeah, and there was stuff about aliens and stuff. He really liked that. But in a funny way, that's kind of quite connected to the topic today, the divine feminine, and discussing that the archetypal network of the feminine. I feel that's quite connected. But yeah, that's when I first met you, Bruce, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a thrilling presentation.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. And which you probably don't know, Arabella, the last episode, the last podcast we did with Bruce and Tobias, we were kind of making an introduction into this story as well, and into divine feminine, and I would say, like, in conclusion, I would say 3 bigger topics were first, like, brain hemispheres, going into Ian McGilchrist's theory, and consciousness and cognition as such, different states of being, and the receptive state, and the more logical, rational, and detail oriented state, as well as I had just read an amazing article from Anne Baring, and she was discussing the actual historical timeline of how patriarchy or the actual religions were created, and how the divine feminine and the goddess was systematically removed from our mythology and our world view.
So weird. It's like, why would you not want that hot, delicious energy back?
Yeah.
I agree with you.
It's fucking weird. That's what it is.
Why wouldn't you?
Very strange. Apparently at some point in time, conquest and gold and riches, it seems alluring and it's great, and then you die sad. And
I think it's control.
Yeah, it's
control and fear.
Oh, it's a whole mix of things. Yeah, that's just not. It's not right. To put it simply.
Well, I think feminine, there is such an intrinsic power in the feminine as expressed biologically on this physical plane, because as I'm sure you're both aware, like the law of gender, the Hermetic, and as outlined in the Hermetic principles, the law of gender iterates itself across every level, right? But so in this physical dimension, we see it most potently expressed in the different physical sexes, right? That's its like most potent expression. So the female body and its capacity to gestate life and give birth to life represents an intrinsic facet of the feminine, and what the feminine is. It creates life, it births life, and that is incredibly powerful. It's more powerful. It has more power than the masculine.
Yeah, and
yes, I mean that.
Yeah, and I loved how in our first podcast, Rainbow Goddess had described it as being a stargate for consciousness of other realms to come through into this one. I was like, that is absolutely powerful.
Yes, and I think, because I believe, like, this is a power that men don't have, but that doesn't mean women are like better than. So the whole idea of something being better than or more than is a dominator hierarchical model. And I think a new model for us to move into, which is non-patriarchal, is about being able to accept that women have a power that men don't have, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean that it becomes hierarchical and it will become an inversion. because I talk about matriarchy a lot. My personal understanding of matriarchy is not about women dominating men. Like, the idea of dominating a man is not attractive to me at all. Men are physically stronger than us, right? Like, men are so much physically stronger than women. They're faster, they're stronger, they can do things women can't do. So I think for me, there's something really about men, and when I say, and I'm speaking men like the masculine impulse, really stepping into a place of reverence for the feminine power that she carries, as well as her vulnerability. Because if you are carrying a baby, you're incredibly vulnerable as well. So it's like you have all this power, this cosmic power, and yet this increased physical vulnerability. Do you know what I mean? So there's a different kind of power play. So I see
Yes.
a matricentric matriarchal model. It's not about what women dominating men. It's about us like attending to that feminine power, reconfiguring the whole power dynamic, whereby that power is revered, it is respected, it is protected. It is protected like something sacred and special and precious, which it is. And there's also so much power in its vulnerability. You know, women die giving birth as well. It's like such a, you know, and I that's what I understand. That's what I really think about when I think about the divine feminine. It's like that power, that fire. You know, also giving birth is an incredibly gruesome, gory, bloody thing, right? It's very Kali energy as well, you know. It's the creator and destroyer of worlds. And so a matriarchy is really arche from the Greek, meaning the beginning, the first cause. It's about seeing the mother as that first, that the mater, the matrix, the holy mother as that first principle of life, right? That we all come from a mother. I haven't come out of a male body. But you both have come out of a female body. All come out of female bodies. I've got double X chromosome. You've both got XY chromosome. So you've got more feminine. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's something about just acknowledging that to reconfigure it. And then I think that will allow the masculine to step into his true power, which is a and guardian. Anyway, sorry, I've been talking time.
No, it's all, you know, spot on. It's in my, well, one example, in my intimate relationships, what has kind of guided me and activated me and opened me is precisely this vulnerability, this desire to protect, and you know, we talked before about, you know, shadows and processing things. For me, like, I would say at least like 60% of my growth as a person has been through like intimate relationships, and of course there come moments where, you know, egos clash. But in that moment, you know, when a woman, at least in my case, goes into this ego mode, or this, you know, dominator mode, or, you know, that doesn't help. That only activates me more, or, you know, puts me into a fight mode. But when a woman can really, and, you know, it's maybe it's not universal, but when a woman dares to be a woman, and dares to show her, you know, vulnerability and her genuine feelings, you know, instead of fighting or demanding, then that's when I can really let go of my anger, my stance, my defenses, and see, you know, and look at myself kind of through the woman in a mirror, and see that I don't want to be this, or I would like to, you know, take care, or be a protector, or, you know, if somehow I didn't make the woman feel safe or secure or stable, then I can look at it instead of, you know, having to protect myself, or having to fight somehow. And it's the same with children. I guess in that way also women are kind of preparing men for having children, for being, you know, a parent, to be able to give up their ego. But that comes for me from this yes, feminine, receptive, like, state of being. and that has taught me a lot. And when you talk about, you know, matriarchy, or when we talk about the divine feminine coming back and the new paradigm, I see more of that in governance, let's say, and in I would even rename it from governance to stewardship.
Yeah, those both, I suppose those both kind of mean the same thing, don't they, really?
Like our last podcast was inspired by Anne Baring's 2019 essay, wherein she kind of steps through history going back 4,000 years of the masculine, feminine, the thinking of nature as something to be conquered, as this chaotic force to be conquered and served for man.
Exploited.
No, you wanted to say?
Exploited, she said.
Oh, yeah, exploited. And not inherently a masculine trait is when we get confused by something, we have different responses. Some of it is to ignore it, some of it is to shut it down. And so because the masculine, the men are stronger, they just, you know, started using their force to control things and to enhance their own ignorance of it, because, oh, I can control and dominate. You know, we're talking about a very complex topic where there are multiple aspects to it, but it is part of that. And it's this exploitation, this control. And yeah, that essay was very interesting. I would encourage listeners to check out that podcast and to read that essay. And in regards to matriarchy, I had a very fantastic experience in Costa Rica a couple months ago, where I sat in on a talk given by an elder of a matriarchal tribe in Costa Rica. They've had matriarchy for a long time, and she, toward the second half of the call, talked about, or the in-person talked about the matriarchy isn't, like you said, Arabella, women being better than men. They are at the head, they're the main decision makers, but they rely on and respect the men just as much. They work together. The men are stronger, they are the protectors, but they do often tend to be less connected to nature, less intuitive, less able to make the best decisions for the all. And she had concluded, or someone asked her a question, okay, well, what can men do about this? How can men step up? And one of her main points, she had many, one of her main points was men should learn to listen better. Listen to, yes, women, but listen to nature, listen to Mother Nature, connect with the earth, understand she is telling us something. That is, she is intelligent, she is wise, and she wants to nurture all of us. And to just really open your mind and work together with it all.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's so insightful. I really agree with that sort of paradigm. Like, I think women are supposed to lead, but not lead in a dominant way. It's more just like about them being acknowledged as a kind of principle. How do I explain this? Because it's like it's a paradox, because it's non-hierarchical, and yet the men yield. The men yield to the feminine, which is almost them embracing the feminine within themselves. Does that make sense? Because women intrinsically surrender and yield, because that's the nature of sexual intercourse. It's a reception, it's a surrendering, it's a receiving. And I think, so if you think about the yin and the yang, in the deepest part of the yin is the yang, and in the deepest part of the yang is the yin. And I think that's where we find our power. Right? So it's like, for instance, in the yin, in the women being, because the feminine is so often construed with softness, passivity, being gentle. Like, and I don't really resonate that much with that. I do to an extent, but I also really, I think what isn't allowed or celebrated so much is that feminine yang, which is not the male yang. It's not aggression. It's that part of us that gives birth. It's that child labor. It's that like fierceness. Do you know what I mean? It's the mother who will sacrifice herself for her children. It's that. And it's that principle that I think is supposed to lead. Right? Like grounded in the context of softness, of the softness, the vulnerability of a woman's body, her intuition, that, right? But that yang energy, right? Of that like fear, that cosmic fierceness. And then men have all this yang on the outside, this incredible, I mean, men are so beautiful, right? Their strength. I actually went to a Chelsea football game on Sunday and I was just looking around enraptured because I have never seen so many men. I have never seen so many men in this like masculine energy. It was like what looking at an army. I was like, wow, this is incredible. This energy, because of the power of it. It's like so tribal and so like so much physical power there. You know what I'm saying? I almost think men can fully embrace that yang, that external yang, by tuning into their yin. That's how they can lead, is that surrender, that feminine within, which gives in, which isn't needing to be right all the time or oppress or dominate or exploit, but allows the feminine to lead him just as he will also lead the feminine, but in a different way. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, it's easy for men to just be brutish and strong, and we're just naturally strong. So if we use that unconsciously, it's very destructive, and it's the true strength of a man too. I love this analogy, is to tap into that inner yin and be receptive, be emotional, and direct it accordingly.
Yeah.
There are better ways to phrase that. I love that analogy though.
Does it make sense though? Because it's different to like a woman being a yang, like a masculine yang. It's the yang within the yin, which is necessarily shaped, molded. Does that mean it's like the nucleus within a yin? So it's very much, it's like, it's like the kind of Artemis, I see it, the huntress, the virgin huntress, right? It's that sort of energy. It's so feminine, yet so like, doesn't fuck around.
Right. And as for like ancient, Greco kings, to consult the oracle, to be receptive to that direction, and then to act through.
Exactly. And the oracles were always women. They were always prophetesses. It was a prophetess. Oh, Patricia.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think I shared it a little bit last time too, but and I had some more ideas now listening to, in the act of creation, like I'm not even talking about making new life or birthing something. I mean, even like in everyday life, when you want to create something, you have a vision and you make it a reality. In that, there is already both necessary. So one is the vision itself, which I link to the light and to the idea as such, and like the blueprint kind of, and to the masculine, the divine masculine, let's say. But as much as that, you also need the other half, which is the receiver, the canvas on which you realize that painting or that vision, as well as or the room or the time. And I'm talking about this because this is really practical issue in my life right now. I have my vision. I'm really clear on my vision, what it is, what are the constituent parts, and how to get there, what are the steps and everything. But I can't get to doing it because I simply don't have the calendar, the time, the schedule, the stability to enable that. So in that sense, like, yes, you can have the vision, but you also need something to receive that vision. And if you go into entrepreneurship, it's the same thing. You might have like the craziest product, the craziest service, it might be really good quality and everything. But if, quote unquote, the market isn't ready for that, if you are ahead of time or behind time, you know, it won't hit the mark. And you know, I think we can bring many analogies like that, but we need both of them. And in terms of the divine leading, I think it's a bit of like enchanting. You know, we men, we want to build. Oh, and yeah, there's one more thought I want to go in there. We want to build, we want to be useful, we want to be, quote unquote, great. But you know, it's like we need inspiration too. It isn't just, you know, some idea hits and when we go do it, it's also like it needs to be something worthwhile to sacrifice ourselves to build, to give our time and devotion to. So I think in this way, women, you know, it's like even in relationships, I think it works much better when the woman says something in the lines of, you know, I would really appreciate that, or I would really like to see that, or I would really like to be there, or do that, or experience this, you know, and then this woman kind of enchants the man to, oh, I can provide this to the woman. I can make her happy. Yeah. Instead of going into this masculine, like I demand this, or like, or even like going into blame or things like that, which is really low vibration. So
yeah, I think that really resonates with something. This I met a guy in Ibiza who basically, this is what he does. He has some sort of community or website, and it's all about the masculine feminine polarity, and like sexual emancipation and stuff. And we were talking about gender dynamics. And he said, the masculine is here to serve. Like that, and that's what brings him joy and fulfillment, is to serve and to be valued for his service. Right?
Yes. Yes.
And
yes.
so that's exactly it. It's about not, you know, you don't want the kind of shadow feminine, like evil stepmother demanding. No, it's about, and it's not passive, but it is just that the requesting. It's more like chivalric, to give the masculine the opportunity to be of service. If you demand, you're not even giving him a chance to actually express his highest essence, you know, because, and then also he said what's really important is to acknowledge the masculine, thank him, you know, let him know. It's a bit like letting a dog, you know, well done, like here's a treat. You know what I mean? Like they need to be rewarded, they need to know. Right? Whereas women are more like cats. We're more like, whatever. You know, like, right? But a dog will chase us up and we'll run because ultimately a dog could tear us apart. But they're more slinky, they're a bit more, you know. Whereas actually men need, it's actually quite simple. They just need to be acknowledged and asked. And not told, but just given the opportunity to create safety and structure for the feminine. As a woman, that's what I want. I just want to feel safe and protected and provided for so that I can express beauty and abundance and deliciousness. I can't do that if I'm scared and in survival.
Yeah, I had this revelation within myself, also in Costa Rica a week before the talk I mentioned, where this ritualistic, this witchy woman who was performing music as well. She's performing music in this yoga shambhala for the crowd. And I was engaged with it. It was very fascinating, but I was kind of pacing around the outer edges. My sense of enjoying her music was pacing around the outer edges, and what was coming through me was, oh, the way that I serve God, which was a question I've been wondering for a couple of years, is like, what does it mean to actually serve God? What does that mean? At least, what does it mean within me? I'm not going to try to project for other people. And it was at that moment where, oh, if I can cultivate and protect a space for others, especially the feminine, to worship and serve the divine in her capacity, if I can give that space and protect that space, that is how I serve God, is to be able to serve others to serve God. And it was that feeling, that very protective nature, so raw, so viscerally. And it was, yeah, it felt so good. And then when I shared that with her after the performance, she was like almost in near tears, like, thank you. That is exactly what we need more of.
Beautiful.
Like, oh, it just emerged. That's what I want to do. And so now I'm part of my efforts now is how can I cultivate spaces, even low key, not so ceremonial like that yet, but how can I just cultivate spaces where I can bring people together, and especially with women, allow them to feel safe to express themselves, because ultimately that's serving God, that's serving all of us.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
A
And
woman.
it's also like you said, Arabella, it's like the yin in the yang and the yang in the yin, because you know, in a way you are like inviting men. I think this is like, you know, this is the feminine to be able to serve and provide. And this, you know, soft approach, this really, like, you know, quote unquote penetrates, like this really goes through and gets to me, and you know, makes us move. I lost one point there, but I also want to get into the shadow side of the masculine, just like inspired from this discussion, also in the same setting, in the vision I had about this, like creativity and the act of creation. I had a real sincere question, like, you know, what's relating to what's wrong with the world, and where does this, you know, quote unquote evil come from, and why are like these psychopaths in power, and how do we deal with them, and where this comes from. And now conversing with you, I realized that there's kind of like two male, like deep let's call them mergers, or yeah, let's call them mergers. One is to hunt, and the other one is to protect. So from the hunting side, I would say, if it like corrupts, it perverts, is when men want to, you know, dominate. The prize of the hunt, the goal of the hunt is to have the whole world, to have everything. That's one side. But also, like, what was more revelatory for me in that trip was that the same way this hunt can go, you know, corrupt or bad, since we can now think ahead generations and generations, thanks to our like enhanced cognitive abilities, and this certain consciousness we have developed, the same way this urge to protect can go bad. You know, you can see quite clearly, I know it's not that simple, but you can kind of see this in the Israel and Palestine quote unquote conflict. I don't want to go deep into there, it's really inflammatory for me, but the desire to protect can pervert into the into a state where you try to, where you can plan, you know, instead of just wanting to, you know, be the king yourself, you can try to make it so that the children of your children of your children of your children will also be kings. You see, you can start to devise and build a system where it's only you at the top, you know, where things will stay this way, and it can come initially from this very sincere desire to protect your children, you know. But when you get to this, I don't know, position, and again, let's not go into conspiracies, but when you get to this level of, let's say, existence, or this dark game of power, you know, we talked about fear and you know, this kind of survival becomes like a dark game, where in order for you to protect your family, you have to do very bad things, you know, at one point, you know, even just to keep them alive. Do you see where this is going? Are you catching my point?
I mean, I think because it's all projection of, like, for the most part, all of us are projecting something, and it's usually projecting out of lack, out of I don't have enough, or projecting out of fear, I'm afraid to lose. And this dark energy of the masculine, it, specifically with seeking control and seeking to control the world and dominate, it's I am not fundamentally okay with what I have, and I'm afraid of, or I'm afraid of losing what I have, or I'm afraid of the uncertainty. And so the more that I can control and have my own territory, the more that I will feel secure and safe. Which some of it is good, but a lot of it is corrupted. It's a lot of it is just fear, and fear is not the highest vibration. We don't have time for that. And it's not a surrender to nature, a surrender to the universe, a surrender to how things are, and being okay with that, which is the inner yin that gives us the true power, the true strength.
And why do we have to protect our genes? I mean, if we are spiritual beings, if we can travel freely and probably even come back here, why the heck do we need to, you know, provide this only to our blood, only to our kin? What's up with that?
What I would also like to suggest in line with this conversation is that part of the evolutionary trajectory of consciousness, at least as we can witness it on this planet, is that because it's almost like a game, yeah, and it's about coming to understand the game code and what's really going on and the initiation to pass through to the next level. So as far as I understand it, that involves transcending this erroneous notion of evolutionary biology as like the motivating factor of why we're here and why we are surviving, which is exactly what you said. Because I don't believe that evolutionary biology has a leg to stand on, really. It's like level one of like a multi-dimensional, like a 12-dimensional like game, right? It's like, okay, that's one aspect that's allowed us to survive in the physical bodies to get to where we are. Is that like the fundamental ontology of why we're here? No. Does that give any insight into the fundamental fabric of consciousness? No. So when you look at sex and the sex drive, the erotic drive, and how Eros works, and how the man and woman actually like how they operate together in this capacity, women are multi-orgasmic. We can have multiple orgasms. We don't stop. We don't ejaculate and then that's it. It's never ending, and it's cyclical. It's undulating. It's like waves in an ocean. Similarly, we can be raped and have the most horrific experience of our entire life and be impregnated. Okay, so the idea that pleasure exists, like physical pleasure occurs when you have sex to encourage procreation, is absolute nonsense. It's nonsense. It doesn't make sense. What I would argue is that part of this initiatory threshold that we need to pass through to evolve is directly related to men understanding that unlocking the key to the cosmos is female orgasm, female pleasure, serving the feminine, making her feel safe, and then him transcending his own ejaculatory urge, whereby he can experience the pleasure of multi-orgasmic energy that isn't goal-oriented. Okay, like that's really what I see. And, you know, these are difficult topics to talk about because sex is so taboo. It's so taboo, and it's like, it's difficult as an academic and as a 33-year-old woman, right, where most of my colleagues are like men over 70, to talk about this, right? It's difficult to talk about this in a way that's not like too exciting. But, you know, I don't mind exciting and being excited, because I couch all of this
I don't mind either. I don't mind either, and it goes back to serving. You know, that's the thing. Like when you talked about it before, that's instantly where it took me to. It's like my greatest pleasure is to serve, like in sex and eroticism too, to serve, to play.
But yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, I can speak in front of you two now, and you can hold the charge, the erotic charge around this topic and everything it conjures, without descending into your lower chakras. Yeah? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, how can we hold Eros and like sexual excitement in our upper chakras? It's the archetype of Aphrodite Urania, or Urania, which is basically like getting an erotic charge from noetic concepts. So like imagine like contemplating the cosmos and that being orgasmic. So I talk about this a lot and write about this a lot in my writing, and it's like I really see part of our evolution is reconciling this, you know, the body and the mind, the masculine and the feminine, in a way that there is no more sexual trauma. You know, as a woman, like we are the hunted. You spoke about the male impulse to hunt and protect, Remo. I have grown up as a woman. You are the hunted, and the man is the hunter. It is fucked up. It is so fucked up. It's not right. It's like insane to me. Like to pursue a woman and to lust after a woman and to want to conquer her, dominate her, you may as well like do that to your own mum. Like you come out of the same body.
Yeah, and you know, about a lot of it is about conquering. You know, I've been there myself where like not only do I not care about the woman, you know, I don't really even care about actually having sex with her or, you know, any kind of thing. It's really about getting to the place where I know I could have had her, you know. And that is fucked up.
And it's also like an empty dopamine sort of thing where like, oh, you know, with video games, oh yeah, I'm gonna play video games, it's gonna feel so good, and then afterward you feel so hollow and it was a waste of time. And the same thing with that objective based that sex to achieve, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be so great, oh yeah, and then afterward you're like, nope, on to the next thing. That wasn't fulfilling, that was a waste. And
yeah, that's kind of what Avatar showed as well. It's like with hunting, like real hunting, like, and the difference between hunting and killing. You know, if you actually, you know, use the animal, everything of the animal, the meat, the skin, you actually need it for survival, and you also provide it to your family, to your tribe. And then contrasting that with, like, you know, our sports hunting nowadays, where you just shoot the animal and basically let it rot, like the worst of it, like in the, you know, in the Wild West, where they actually shot, you know, what was the species, kind of like cows, but, you know, bigger and hairier. They killed, yeah, they killed all the buffalo, just shooting from trains.
Yep.
Doing nothing with the animal, only pure sports. And even like in terms of sports, what the fuck is that?
Well, it's cowardice, isn't it? That's what a coward does. That's weak. You know, that's weak. It's weak to rape someone. Like what kind, do you know what I mean? That's not like a strong thing to do. It really reminds me of David Hawkins' idea of power versus force. You guys are familiar with that, right?
I'm not.
Do elaborate.
Well, this book like changed my life. Okay, David Hawkins. Do you know who David Hawkins is?
Yes.
Yeah, the psychiatrist and MD. So he who measured levels of consciousness, right? He calibrated levels of consciousness.
Yeah, the scale.
Yeah. So he wrote a very famous book called Power versus Force, where he examines the difference between power versus force. So a force is like a weaker level of consciousness. Force is dominance. You know, and so you can compare like each iteration of consciousness can be understood in terms of like power and force. So I think he has like a table, right? So for example, Jesus is like your paradigm example of power, right? He was just intrinsically powerful, like powerful through his forgiveness, powerful through the love, powerful through the peace. Like how powerful is it that he was being crucified, and on the cross he said, Lord, forgive them, they know not what they do. Like what's more powerful, like someone crucifying him? No, that's force. Against his will, you know, that's not strong. Yeah, okay, they killed him, like cool. He got ascended, no big deal. So it's sort of that principle. You know, it's about like or someone like Gandhi doing peaceful protests, like that's power.
Yep. Martin Luther King Jr. leading nonviolent protests, and they took him out because he was doing it nonviolently, and he was acquiring power, just being peace, leading strongly, not forcefully.
Exactly. And they used force to eliminate him.
This is all out of fear.
Yeah,
It's all out of control because of fear.
Yeah. When you were talking about the chakras and kind of, sublimating the energy, I think, we do it kind of naturally, given like a healthy development curve. Like in the second part of our lives, I think that, like, just going into the chakra model, I think the first part of our life, we were more, related to our body and the physical existence and survival and sexuality, actually reproducing. But then the same, like, sexual energy at some point, when we have done our, let's say, biological quote unquote duties, then this gets into the higher, like, just, I would say, like, organically or naturally gets like this sexual energy, this creative force is left over for, like, spiritual development and for expression on these higher levels. Not now, of course, it doesn't have to be black and white and like that, but that is kind of the natural curve of human development too. And also, was so historically, I think, way before, like, patriarchy took over too. Like, for example, the Indian temples, the original ones, most of them have really, really, like, sexual sculptures, like, in front of the temples. And the point kind of was that, if you can't get past the sculptures, you're not ready to enter the temple.
I like that. I've not heard of that. I like that. And just on a note, a friend had shared with me some time ago, in terms of in the sexual serving fulfillment of men, really at the highest vibration. There's a book. It's actually two books. There's a male and a female version. It's called Healing Love Through the Tao: Cultivating Male or Cultivating Female Sexual Energy. And in that, with the cultivating male, it isn't about reaching orgasm on your end and being done. And it's actually about just engaging with that serving and just bringing it in with all that we've talked about. How the question was posed by Arabella, just kind of slipped it in some time ago. How do we address, how do we convince, if convincing is needed, for those that are in power to understand this information? I had the savior complex before. I had this, like, I understand the secret and the truth of all this. I need to go and convince them. I'm seeing more increasingly so that's, like, probably not my role, but I can't be okay. I can be okay with just letting it be and kind of trusting the universe and God is going to make it right. But at the same time, is this the masculine, like, some sort of unhealed masculine within me still, of like, but shouldn't I participate? Shouldn't I do something about this? And that is still something I have an open question of, but I know that my answer is bring it back to me and the people around me and spread the information and just hope that the right people catch it and the right people are inspired through them to propagate that, and just over generations. It might be a generational thing. We might need another generation or two just to replace over time.
Well, Bruce, I think it's also important to kind of test and experiment with the information, to receive the teachings, the learnings, but also to kind of live it out in your life, to actually solve your own personal problems. And then, like, through your personal example, you can really bring it, like, in a practical, in a felt, and then embodied sense to other people. I think that's where where the real power is. We can share the 10 commandments and the stories of Jesus, but unless you really, like, embody it, it's just a fairy tale.
I think from a female perspective, Bruce, like, what I would really appreciate as someone who thinks and speaks about this a lot is that men are going to receive what I have to say a lot better coming from a man. Like, especially if they're on, like, I can preach to the converted, men who are very receptive and very open and pretty awake. Fine, that's fine, because they're not threatened. A lot of men are very threatened by me very scared. I'm a threat because I'm literally everything that the patriarchy is terrified of. So it's kind of a waste of my time if I'm like, this is how it is, and no. It just, what happens is then they project onto me, angry feminist, they can't hear it. So it's like, I think what would be really amazing is just to have more men speaking about matriarchy, you know, standing up for women. I was in the sauna the other day and actually like was spoken to really inappropriately. I had to report it. It was essentially verbal harassment, and there were like 2 other guys in there who didn't do anything because they were scared. Like in a ideal reality, at least one of those men would have said, "Hey, this is inappropriate. Leave her alone." But guess what I did? I had to fight. I don't want to fucking fight. I don't want to fight. I want to be protected. I want to feel that men have got my back. At least some men get it and have got my back. Like, I think that's what women want more than anything in the world, is to be like, oh, they're not all fucked up.
Yeah.
You know, they're not all like this. And of course, like, there's tons of women out there with amazing men, and there's loads of amazing men. We know that. But I'm talking like at the collective level, there is such a lack of faith in men. You know, there's such a lack of faith. There's such a sort of, I don't know, disdain. I don't think men really know what it is to be a man because they were never taught. So we need men also to initiate other men, you know, to take them on vision quests, psycho-spiritual vision quests into the feminine mystery. You know, and we need men to, like, stewards. We need men, like, you know, to go out there and rally.
But that's exactly what's been missing thanks to the wars. We haven't had our fathers to teach us, you know, in a gentle, kind, and loving manner what it really means to be a man. What's the real example? And that's exactly what encouraged or kind of called me to start my men's circles, and I've been doing ever since for like 6 years. That's exactly what we're doing there. We're, you know, sitting together, we're being vulnerable, we're sharing from our own experience and life. We aren't teaching each other like in this, you know, finger nagging way, or this even like philosophical or abstract way, or that, oh, I read this in a book, you know. No, I read this in the book, I tried it out in my life, and this is what I got. This is what happened. This is where I fell. This is where I hurt myself, or this is where I hurt others. Like the last circle of our topic was a guilt, a little bit about shame as well, but guilt, and wow, what wisdom poured out of us. Like very often the experience is that you're surprised what you are saying yourself, like when you really look into your own life and face your, you know, pains and inadequacies without judgment. That's the thing, without judgment.
Beautiful.
Indeed. And yeah, just with any community cultural problem, it takes, yeah, we could say lower consciousness people, scared people will really only listen to people of their kind that they perceive.
Yes.
In any situation, it has to be the community that heals itself. So unfortunately, yes, Arabella, you're spot on. You know, I wish it wasn't the case, but it is the case. And that is the path forward, is for some men, like I'd say Remo and I, to listen to what the feminine is saying, and then to be able to help our fellow men, our fellow brothers. And you mentioned there is a lack of initiation in the men, whereas women, all women are naturally initiated. They get thrust into adulthood. They have no choice. Yeah. And whereas nowadays we have a lot of boys who are over 30, 40 years.
Oh, I know. I've dated a few of
them. Yeah. They're still boys.
Pandemic, mate.
Indeed. And we discussed this during the symposium on that Sunday where we chatted. Someone threw criticism toward you, and it was like one of the first times where I was like, okay, let me get over my fear of like public speaking and being seen, whatever. And I just started saying, and it was kind of, there was some like stutter there, but I was just like, no, listen to what she's saying. Like,
you were my hero in that moment.
Yeah.
You were my hero. You and Louise kind of came to my defense, but it was especially powerful coming from you, because you basically said to these old white men, patriarchy works very well for you. Patriarchy works very well for you. And because you're a man, so like it works well for you too, but you're acknowledging it and saying it's wrong, even though you're a beneficiary. And that's what's powerful. Because I'm the oppressed, you know, but there's something more powerful about an oppressor. Do you know what I mean? It's like people who sort of I don't know, say a white person who has worked really hard to abolish slavery. There's something really powerful about that because they didn't need to do that. They're not being oppressed. There's nothing in it for them. But they're doing it because they know, because you know, in the name of cosmic justice, divine justice, of moral beauty, of that which is right. And there's something so powerful in that. I'm driven by that, but I'm also driven by it because I'm in a feminine body. So it's like that fire I have in me is intense because I've been persecuted. Where you know what I mean? I think that's what we're speaking about here. You know, you were protecting me. You were also, in doing that, embodying what the divine masculine should do, which is to fucking protect. You were protecting
hold
me.
the fire.
Yes. That's why it was so powerful. I felt so like seen and validated and safe in that moment because of you.
Thank you. I was very happy to have done it. Just felt right.
Well, let's see what happens this year.
Indeed.
Yeah,
well,
we can.
Guys, I have to go for dinner.
Yes.
Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
This was great, though.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up too. So thank you, Arabella.
It was wonderful. Great to chat with you, Arabella. Have a wonderful dinner.
Both of you. Thanks, guys. I'll see you both really soon, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for your time. Yeah, so let's wrap up on our end too. You know, we can.
Indeed. We thank anyone and everyone who's listening. Do check out our previous podcasts and salons. We also have we do this sort of thing once a month. Every third Tuesday of the month, we do the salon, sort of like an open podcast. We invite other people, anyone and anyone, to join on and join the conversation. This is more than just us as the new Paradigm Navigator core team discussing these topics. We want to involve humanity and propagate this around. And so yeah, it starts with
build community and you know, think on our feet, you know, really like, you know, develop ourselves and share our experience and even, you know, visions and dreams of what this new paradigm is going to be. Because one thing I've learned through this group is that, you know, there is no new paradigm as a concrete, you know, vision or picture. There are some hunches and intuitions, but what there is for certain is us and the younger generations, the new people that will inherit the world and who are very much trying to make it a better place. So you know, us conversing, us sharing our life experience and our outlooks, I think that is the new paradigm, really. And this is, you know, coming together and sharing from an authentic and honest and safe place. Safe meaning that, you know, without judgment. You know, I love this word. I've come to understand it a bit. The difference between judgment and discernment. I think that's a big part of spirituality and spiritual development. When you move from judgment into discernment, you know, from reaction into wisdom. So yeah, come and join us, and it's always a pleasure, Bruce.
And you as well, Remo. This was great. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, until the next time.
Till next time.